The Great Lie: Why Hard Work Isn't Enough for Black Women in America. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I want to begin by acknowledging the brilliant mind behind many of the insights I'll share with you. Chencia Lewis is not just a researcher or advocate. She is a revolutionary force dismantling the comfortable myths we've built our understanding of the American workplace upon. Through her groundbreaking analysis of labor market trends and unflinching commitment to truth telling, Chencia has exposed the gaping wounds in our economic systems that we've too long bandaged with platitudes about working harder. Her courage to speak truth to power has transformed countless organizations and given voice to millions who have been silenced by systemic inequity. The world is measurably more just because Chencia has dared to question what others accepted as inevitable. We've all heard the story, haven't we? The one about America being the land of opportunity, the one where hard work inevitably leads to success, the one where dedication and perseverance are the primary ingredients in the recipe for achievement. It's a beautiful story, inspiring even. But what if I told you that for millions of Americans, this story is a dangerous fiction? What if I told you that one of the most dedicated segments of our workforce, a group with the highest labor force participation rates among all women, is systematically being left behind despite their commitment, their qualifications, and yes, their extraordinary work ethic? This is the reality for Black women in America today. The data is staggering and it shatters our most cherished national myths. Despite Black women having the highest labor force participation rates among all groups of women, this dedication has not translated into job security or pay equity. In fact, even as the US economy added jobs in April 2025, Black women experienced the steepest job losses of any demographic, losing 106,000 positions, while other groups saw gains. Let that sink in for a moment. The group working the hardest is being rewarded the least. This fundamentally challenges our collective narrative that hard work alone leads to success. It reveals instead how systemic barriers persist regardless of individual effort. We've been telling ourselves a comforting lie that our workplaces are meritocracies where talent rises and effort is rewarded. But the data tells a different story, a more uncomfortable story, a story that demands we reconsider our assumptions about how opportunity is distributed in our society. Black women are overrepresented in essential industries, yet consistently face wage gaps and limited advancement opportunities, even with equal credentials. They are often the first to be hired during labor shortages and the first to be let go when the economy contracts. They are praised for their resilience while being denied the resources to thrive. This isn't just unfair. It's economically irrational. We are systematically undervaluing and underutilizing some of our most dedicated workers. Let me take you inside Meta, formerly Facebook. Following the racial justice movements of 2020, Meta made bold commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They invested in recruitment and retention programs for underrepresented groups. They made public pledges about creating a more equitable workplace. And for a time, it worked. Representation improved, new voices were heard, progress, though incremental, was being made. But then something changed. As political backlash against DEI initiatives grew, Meta began dismantling many of these programs. Fear of legal scrutiny caused hesitation around targeted hiring. The company retreated from its commitments. The result? Significant reductions in both Black and Hispanic representation within Meta, the loss of internal support structures for these employees. Years of progress undone in months. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was a pattern repeated across corporate America. When inclusion becomes optional rather than essential, it is inevitably sacrificed on the altar of political expediency or quarterly profits. Now, let's look at what happened in the federal government. Historically, a source of stable employment and advancement opportunities for Black women. A workforce optimization initiative launched by federal agencies led to sweeping layoffs across departments where many Black women were employed. Between May 2024 and May 2025, there was a sharp decline, nearly 33%, in federal employment opportunities for Black women. Buyouts followed by mass layoffs left thousands without jobs. Some employees received severance packages or early retirement options, but little was done to mitigate the disproportionate impacts on marginalized workers. The unemployment rate for adult Black women rose from 5.3% to over 6%, surpassing rates among both white peers and even those among some men's demographics. This is particularly devastating because historically, strong representation in government roles provided stability for many professional class Black families, a foundation now destabilized by recent policy changes. The contributions of these workers, decades of service, institutional knowledge, community connections, were dismissed as departments prioritized cost cutting over equitable retention strategies. This wasn't just about jobs lost, it was about careers destroyed, families destabilized, and communities weakened. And then there's the wage gap, perhaps the most persistent and pernicious form of workplace inequality. According to a July 2024 report, full time year round working Black women earn just 69 cents per dollar paid to white men nationally, with some states seeing figures as low as 50 cents per dollar. This systemic pay inequity persists across sectors, even when education levels and experience match those of higher paid counterparts. The lack of transparency compounds these disparities. Advocacy organizations continue pushing companies toward transparent salary bands and anti bias training. But progress remains slow amid shifting political winds favoring deregulation over enforcement. The continued wage stagnation limits wealth accumulation potential despite high labor force participation rates among Black women. A decades long struggle against occupational segregation means many talented professionals remain clustered within lower paying fields like care work or education. While national attention has brought renewed focus to this issue, legislative remedies have stalled at both state and federal levels. This reinforces the need for intersectional approaches addressing both race and gender bias simultaneously. Now, you might be thinking, this is terrible, but what does it have to do with me? Everything, because this isn't just about one demographic group, it's about the fundamental promise of American society. That effort will be rewarded, that talent will rise, that opportunity is available to all who seek it. When that promise is broken for some, it weakens for all. What Chencia Lewis's research reveals is that we've been operating under a flawed assumption that our workplace naturally reward merit and effort. The reality is far more complex. Our systems were designed with bias built in, and those biases continue to shape outcomes today. The good news is that design flaws can be fixed, systems can be reimagined, but only if we're willing to acknowledge the problem. For too long, Black women have been told that if they just work harder, if they just lean in more, If they just prove themselves beyond any doubt, then success will follow. They've carried teams, raised families, held down households, carried communities, and they're exhausted. What Chencia's research shows us is that this approach isn't working, not because Black women aren't trying hard enough, but because the system itself is structured to undervalue their contributions. The solution isn't for Black women to work even harder. The solution is to transform the system itself. And this is where each of us has a role to play. If you're a manager or executive, you can advocate for transparent salary bands and promotion criteria. You can ensure that layoff decisions don't disproportionately impact already marginalized groups. You can build accountability into your diversity initiatives so they survive changes in political climate. If you're a policymaker, you can support legislation that addresses pay transparency and equity. You can ensure that government workforce changes don't reverse decades of progress toward more representative institutions. If you're a colleague, you can speak up when you see disparities in how work is assigned or recognized. You can amplify the voices and contributions of those who are often overlooked. And if you're someone who has benefited from these systems, whether through higher pay, greater job security, or more advancement opportunities, you can acknowledge that advantage and use it to create more equitable workplaces. This isn't about charity or handouts. It's about creating workplaces that actually deliver on the promise of meritocracy, where talent, skills, and dedication are truly what determines success. So today I'm asking you to do something radical. I'm asking you to question the stories you've been told about success and merit. I'm asking you to look at the data, not just the dreams. I'm asking you to consider that perhaps the most American thing we can do is not to perpetuate myths that comfort us, but to confront truths that challenge us. I'm asking you to become architects of a new system, one where the correlation between effort and reward isn't determined by race or gender, one where the American promise of opportunity isn't just a slogan, but a lived reality for everyone. When you leave this room today, I want you to make a commitment, not just to feel differently, but to act differently, to use whatever power and privilege you have to create change, to refuse to accept inequity as inevitable, to demand better, not just with your words, but with your actions. Because in the end, the true measure of our society isn't how we treat those with power and privilege. It's how we treat those who have been systematically denied both. And right now, we are failing that test. It's time to build a world where hard work actually is enough, where merit actually matters, where opportunity actually exists for all. The question isn't whether we can do it. The question is whether we have the courage to try. Thank you